Welcome to a new episode of Facts, where I answer the internet's questions every week. And today's question comes in from Twitter from Cynthia Lopez, and her question is, I am migrating my website to a new host. What is the best practice to make it a successful migration? Well, Cynthia, to give you a straight answer, there is a long list of best practices for migrating a website, but I'm going to give you my top 4 best practices in order for you to migrate your website successfully. So to top that list is your website framework. Prior to migrating to a new host, you need to figure out what your website was built on. And if your website was built on a particular framework or a CMS, then you need to test out that framework or CMS before migrating any of your files. A lot of times, website owners find compatibility issues in the hosting company. And some of these compatibility issues do affect the website functions and even the designs at some point. So make sure prior to migrating to a new hosting, select a host that you know is compatible with the framework or CMS of your current website. You can always do this by testing out the CMS or framework on the hosting prior to migration. Second on the list is your files. So prior to migration, the way I usually do it is I always check my files and see if there are any duplicates or any files that are really unused and are not necessary for migration. So what I usually do is really go through via FTP or even go through my CMS and check if there are any unnecessary files that I could delete, because compressing files and migrating to another host takes a long time due to the number of big files that you need to migrate over to the new host. And this is basically time consuming. Imagine migrating unnecessary files to your new host, which delays migration for a couple of hours and even a couple of days. So make sure you have your files organized and you only have the necessary files needed to migrate to your hosting. Number 3 on the list is quite important because many website owners or even developers tend to forget one of the most important elements, which is the database. Now, the database is usually accessible just by the website admin or the server admin, and thus a lot of business owners tend to forget to get a duplicate of the database and migrate it to the new host. So usually the database has the configurations of the content of your website and sometimes the content of your website itself. They make sure that these content are distributed into your website in the proper manner. So make sure you make a copy of your database prior to migrating your website to a new server. The 4th tip I'm going to give you is website configuration. So you may have your framework working, you may have migrated your files and the database itself, but what about the configuration settings that you need to deal with in pointing to a new server? It's not enough just copying files and databases over to the new server. You need to configure them and set up the settings so it would run and function the same way it is functioned currently. So you need to check configurations of your domain and make sure it points to the new server. You need to check configuration of emails and make sure the MX records are pointing to the right server as well. Of course, and other configurations that your website needs in your servers. This all depends on the different types of frameworks, CMS, builds, and you name it. So make sure you have that on your migration checklist prior to the actual migration. I'd like to thank you for watching this episode. I hope this educates you on the topic on hand. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, also that bell button to get notifications on the latest uploads I do every week. In the case you'll require a team or agency to build a website for you, don't forget to check out Mediafied.com. I have a bunch of web developers ready to build your website, and we offer the best plans and packages for every website need that you'll require.